have been compromised? We've heard 4 million, we've heard 14 million. What's the right number? Your microphone, please.
Sorry. During the course of the ongoing investigation into the cyber intrusion of OPM that compromised the personnel records of current and former federal employees that we announced last week, that number is approximately 4.2 million. In addition, in the investigation of that breach, we discovered, as I mentioned in my testimony, an additional OPM system was compromised. And these systems included information based on the background investigations of current, former, and prospective federal government employees as well as other individuals. Because different agencies feed into OPM background investigation systems in different ways, we are working with the agencies right now to determine how many of their employees were affected. We do not have that number at this time, but we will get back to you once we have
What's your best estimate? Is the 14 million number wrong or accurate?
As I said before, we do not have an estimate because this is an ongoing investigation.
How far back does it go? The information that you're talking about former employees, current employees, and potential employees. So how far back does this information go that was in your system?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chaffetz. I would have to respond again, is because it's an ongoing investigation.
It has nothing to do impeding an investigation. You should know what information you have and what you don't. So this is not going to slow down any investigation. People have a right to know. The employees have a right to know. How far back does your information database go that was compromised?
The legacy systems date back to 1985, but I do not.
So anything that's 1985?
No, sir, that would not be correct.
You don't know. Does it include military personnel?
As I said, this is an ongoing
This is a yes-no question. Does it include military personnel?
I would be glad to discuss that in a classified setting.
Does it include contractor information?
Again, I would be glad to discuss that in a classified setting.
There's nothing classified as to what information this includes. Does it include CIA personnel?
I would be glad to discuss that in a classified setting.
Does it include anybody who's filled out SF-86, the standard form 86?
The individuals who have completed an SF-86 and may be included in that, and we can provide additional information in a classified setting.
Why wasn't this information encrypted?
The encryption is one of the many tools that systems can use. I'll look to my colleagues at DHS for their response.
No, I want to know from you why the information wasn't encrypted. It's personal sensitive information. Birth dates, social security numbers, background information, addresses. Why wasn't it encrypted?
Data information encryption is a valuable
yeah, it's valuable. Why wasn't it?
And is an industry best practice. In fact, our cybersecurity framework promotes encryption as a key protection method.
Why didn't
Accordingly, OPM does utilize encryption.
We didn't ask you to come read statements. I want to know why you didn't encrypt the information.
An adversary possessing proper credentials can often decrypt data. It is not feasible to implement on networks that are too old. The limitations on encryptions is our effectiveness is why OPM is taking other steps, such as limiting administrators' accounts and requiring multi-factor authentication.
Okay, well, it didn't work, so you failed, okay? You failed utterly and totally. So the Inspector General, November 12, 2014, we recommend that the OPM director consider shutting down information systems that do not have current and valid authorization. And you chose not to. Why?
I appreciate the report by the IG. We work very closely with our IG, and take very seriously.
Okay, but he had a very serious recommendation to shut down the system. That's how bad it was, and you said no.
I'd like to turn that over to my...
No, I would like you to answer that question. You get to make the... It says, we recommend that the OPM director consider shutting it down. Your response was, the quote, the response back to the from the Office of Chief Information Officer, quote, the IT program managers will work with the ISSOs to ensure that OPM systems maintain current ATOs and that there are no interruptions to OPM's mission operations. Basically, he said no. The Inspector General was right. Your systems were vulnerable. The data was not encrypted. It could be compromised. They were right last year. They recommended it was so bad that you shut it down, and you didn't. And I want to know why.
There are many responsibilities we have with our data. And to shut down the system, we need to consider all of the responsibilities we have with the use of our systems.
So you made a conscious decision, knowing that it was vulnerable, that all these millions of records for federal employees was out there. The Inspector General pointed out the vulnerability, and you said, no, we're not making a change.
As the director of OPM, I have to take into consideration all of the work that we must do. It was a decision that we would not, but continue to develop the system and making sure that we have the security within those systems. The recommendation.
And did you do that? You didn't. You didn't, did you? That didn't happen, did it?
The recommendation after the recommendation to close down our systems came after the adversaries were already in our network.
When did they get in? When did they get in network?
Of our security systems that we were able to detect this intrusion.
When did they get into the system?
We detected the intrusion in April
of
2015.
So, but how did you know in November of 2014 that they were already, you didn't know if they were in there, did you?
No, we did not. We did not have the systems we did not have the security systems installed at that time. It was because we were able to add those security systems that we were able to detect.
So you detected the system? It wasn't a software provider that protected, you found it yourself?
OPM detected the intrusion.
So the New York Times and the others who wrote that were wrong?
That's correct.
Two more questions with your indulgence here. How many people have received letters?
There's a rolling number as we work from the first date of notification, January 8th. We will complete the notification to 4.2 million by June 19th. I'm sorry I don't have the exact date number as of today. I'd be glad to get that information for you.
One last question with everybody's indulgence here. Ms. Archuleta, there was a data breach at OPM in July of 2014, okay? This is what you said about your Ms. Seymour. In December, I was very fortunate to bring Donna Seymour from the Department of Defense on board. She has great experience with IT world and brought her talents to OPM. It was because of her leadership and her dedicated employees that we were able to make sure that none of this personal identifiable information was compromised. This was July of 2014. You cited her with the data breach as making sure that none of the personal identifiable information got out the door. Now that it has been hacked, are you going to give her that same amount of credit?
I do give her that same amount of credit. Sir, when I began my tenure as the director of OPM, one of my first priorities was to develop an IT strategic plan and to develop the important pillar of cybersecurity within our systems. We have worked very hard since that time, and as we update these legacy systems, it's important that we recognize that there is a persistent and aggressive effort on the part of these actors to not only intrude in our system, but systems throughout government and indeed in the private sector.
Well, you have completely and utterly failed in that mission if that was your objective. The Inspector General has been warning about this since 2007. There have been breach after breach. He recommended shutting it down last year, and you made a conscious decision to not do that. You kept it open, the information was vulnerable, and the hackers got it. I don't know if it's the Chinese, the Russians, or wherever else, but they've got it. And they're going to prey upon the American people. That's their goal and objective. And you made a conscious decision to leave that information vulnerable. It was the wrong decision. It was in direct contradiction to what the Inspector General said should happen. And you've been warning about it for years.
I would note that in the IG's report, that he acknowledges the fact that we've taken important steps in reforming our IT systems. Advanced tools take time.
So what kind of grade would you give yourself? You succeeding or failing?
Cybersecurity problems take decades.
We don't have decades. They don't take decades.
I'm sorry. Cybersecurity problems are decades in the making. Whole of government is responsible, and it will take all of us to solve the issue and continue to work on them. My leadership in this particular, with OPM is one that instigated the improvements and changes that were recognized, that recognized the attack.
Yield back. I recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings, for as much time as he wants.
Thank you very much.